After Putin calls for three-day ceasefire, Trump reiterates demand for permanent Ukraine truce. China says willing to cooperate with U.S. after Boeing Spat. Trump administration investigating Harvard Law Review for alleged discrimination. Convicted Italian cardinal pulls out of conclave to choose new pope. Mystery of Bolivian zombie volcano finally solved. After Putin calls for three-day ceasefire, Trump reiterates demand for permanent Ukraine truce. Russian President Vladimir Putin on Monday declared a unilateral three-day ceasefire in Ukraine next month, a move met with skepticism by Ukrainian officials, who demanded the Kremlin leader immediately accept a longer truce proposal from the United States that he has so far rejected. Moscow said if all military actions in Ukraine would be suspended from midnight May 8 to midnight May 11, a decision which it said was based on humanitarian considerations. The truce would coincide with Russia's World War II Victory Day commemorations on May 9 and the 80th anniversary of the defeat of Nazi Germany. Putin's announcement, which was met with renewed urging from the White House for a permanent ceasefire, comes as the Trump administration ramps up pressure on Moscow and Kiev to agree to a deal to end the war. On Sunday, U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio said this week would be very critical in determining whether the U.S. would persist with its efforts to broker peace. While President Trump welcomes Vladimir Putin's willingness to pause the conflict, the president has been very clear he wants a permanent ceasefire and to bring this conflict to a peaceful resolution, U.S. National Security Council spokesman Brian Hughes said on Monday. Later on Monday, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky called the ceasefire declaration an attempt at manipulation, pointing out that, despite the Kremlin leader saying he wants peace, he has not accepted the U.S. proposal for a 30-day ceasefire that Kiev has agreed to. Russia has consistently rejected everything and continues to manipulate the world, trying to deceive the United States. Now yet again, another attempt at manipulation. For some reason, everyone is supposed to wait until May 8 before ceasing fire, just to provide Putin with silence for his parade, Zelensky said in a post on X. Zelensky's chief of staff, Andriy Yermak, thanked Trump on Monday for supporting a full ceasefire, writing in a post on X that only a permanent, unconditional, and comprehensive ceasefire, not a temporary one, as Putin proposes, is necessary to end the war. If Russia truly wants peace, it must cease fire immediately, Ukrainian Foreign Minister Andriy Sybiha said in response to Monday's announcement from the Kremlin. Why wait until May 8? Ukraine is ready to support a lasting, durable, and full ceasefire. And this is what we are constantly proposing for at least 30 days, he added. China says willing to cooperate with U.S. after Boeing Spat. China is willing to support normal cooperation with U.S. companies, the country's Ministry of Commerce said, just days after Chinese airlines rejected taking delivery of any new jets from U.S. plane maker Boeing Co. Chinese officials acknowledged that U.S. tariffs imposed by President Donald Trump have disrupted the global air transport market, affecting both Chinese airlines and Boeing. In a statement Tuesday, Beijing expressed hope for a stable U.S.-China trade environment, signaling a possible shift toward dialogue. Earlier this month, China halted deliveries of Boeing jets in response to Trump's tariffs of up to 145% on Chinese goods. China countered with 125% tariffs on U.S. imports, making Boeing planes too costly for Chinese carriers. Though China hasn't reversed this ban, experts say the latest message shows willingness to negotiate. China, expected to drive 20% of global aircraft demand in the next 20 years, may ease tariffs on U.S. products like medical gear and industrial chemicals. Officials are also considering waiving tariffs on plane leases to reduce financial pressure on airlines. Boeing CEO Kelly Ortberg confirmed China has paused plane deliveries, but said the company is finding other buyers. Air India has already taken 41 jets originally meant for China and is open to more. Analysts say the shift highlights how China's policy may hurt its own airlines more than it affects Boeing. Trump administration investigating Harvard Law Review for alleged discrimination. President Donald Trump's administration is launching an investigation into Harvard University's law journal over alleged discriminatory practices, expanding its weeks-long battle over federal funding with the elite institution. The civil rights offices of the Education and Health and Human Services Departments announced Monday they are investigating the Harvard Law Review, an independent, student-run organization that promotes legal scholarship. The offices are investigating allegations that the journal discriminates based on race in lieu of merit-based standards, in violation of the Title VI anti-discrimination law, according to a release by the two agencies. Harvard Law Review's article selection process appears to pick winners and losers on the basis of race, employing a spoils system in which the race of the legal scholar is as, if not more, important than the merit of the submission. Craig Traynor, acting assistant secretary within the Education Department's Office for Civil Rights, said in a statement on Monday. The agency said the Harvard Law Review risks losing federal funding if found to have broken Title VI law. The Harvard Law Review has been published and edited by students for over 135 years. It aims to be an effective research tool for practicing lawyers and students, according to its website. Harvard Law School is committed to ensuring that the programs and activities it oversees are in compliance with all applicable laws and to investigating any credibly alleged violations, a spokesperson for the university said in a statement to ABC News, noting that the journal is a student-run organization that is legally independent from the law school. The latest investigation comes after the Trump administration froze over $2.2 billion in federal funding to Harvard after the university refused to comply with a series of demands following an anti-Semitism task force review earlier this month. Harvard University President Alan Garber said in a letter at the time that no government, regardless of which party is in power, should dictate what private universities can teach, whom they can admit and hire, and which areas of study and inquiry they can pursue. The university has filed a lawsuit over the Trump administration's threats to withhold funding, asking a judge to block the funding freeze from going into effect, arguing the move is unlawful and beyond the government's authority. During a short conference on Monday, U.S. District Court Judge Allison Burroughs scheduled oral arguments in the lawsuit, challenging the funding freeze on July 21. In the meantime, the funding freeze will remain in effect. Convicted Italian cardinal pulls out of conclave to choose new pope. A cardinal convicted of financial crimes by the Vatican said Tuesday he will not take part in the secret conclave to elect the new pope. Cardinal Giovanni Angelo Becciu, once one of the most powerful figures in the Vatican, was ordered by Pope Francis in 2020 to resign the rights and privileges of a cardinal after he became embroiled in a Vatican financial scandal. Following the Pope's death last week, Becciu launched an appeal in support of his right to be in the conclave, but on Tuesday, he issued a statement announcing he was formally pulling out. "I have decided to obey, as I have always done. Pope Francis will not to enter the conclave while remaining convinced of my innocence," he said. Cardinals have chosen May 7 as the date to start the conclave and elect a new leader for 1.4 billion Catholics around the world, the Vatican announced Monday. Becciu's decision to withdraw from the conclave comes just 7 days after he told a Sardinian newspaper that there was no explicit will to exclude me from the conclave, nor a request for my explicit renunciation in writing. The Sardinian cardinal previously held the position of sostituto, substitute, in the Holy See Secretariat of State, a papal chief of staff equivalent. The role offered Becciu walk-in privileges to see the Pope, and he commanded huge authority across the Church's central government. He was later moved to a position running the Vatican's saint-making department. Becciu was convicted of embezzlement and fraud in 2023 and handed a 5.5-year jail sentence. He is the first cardinal to be convicted by the Vatican's criminal court. But the cardinal, who has always maintained his innocence, launched an appeal that's currently still under consideration. He's allowed to continue to live in a Vatican apartment while this process is underway. Mystery of Bolivian zombie volcano finally solved. A zombie volcano in Bolivia has been rumbling in its sleep, despite being dormant for hundreds of thousands of years, and scientists now think they know why. Uchurancu, located in the Andes in southwestern Bolivia, last erupted around 250,000 years ago. For several decades, it has been showing signs of unrest, releasing plumes of gas, shaking with earthquakes, and causing the surrounding ground to deform, leading to concerns it could be about to erupt. However, according to a new study published Monday, April 28, in the journal PNAS, the unusual activity is down to the movement of liquid and gas beneath the mountain. This not only explains why a zombie volcano remains active, but also offers insights into its eruption potential, establishing a technique that could be applied to help evaluate eruption hazards at other active volcanoes, the researchers wrote in the paper. Uchurancu is a large, dormant volcano that stands at a height of 19,711 feet, 6,008 meters, above sea level. It is a stratovolcano, which is a large, steep, and cone-shaped volcano built up by many layers, strata, of hardened lava, volcanic ash, and rocks. Stratovolcano eruptions are often explosive because the lava is thick, meaning it traps gas easily. Mount St. Helens and Mount Vesuvius are both stratovolcanoes. US-HotNews is known as a zombie volcano because of its ongoing, but non-eruptive activity, the researchers wrote in the paper. Since the 1990s, satellite radar and GPS measurements have shown that the ground around US-HotNews is deforming in a sombrero pattern, with a central region of rising ground surrounded by subsidence or sinking. The central rising land has been uplifting for at least 50 years, at a varying rate of up to 0.4 inches, 1 centimeter per year. This deformation, along with the frequent earthquakes recorded in the region and plumes of volcanic gases, especially carbon dioxide, CO2, being released from the volcano, led some scientists to theorize that there might be a huge magma body building underneath US-HotNews. US-HotNews sits above an enormous and extremely deep underground reservoir of magma named the Altiplano Puna Magma Body, APMB, which stretches beneath southern Bolivia, northern Chile, and northern Argentina. Magma from the APMB can be pushed upward and accumulate near the surface. The presence of a body of magma beneath the volcano could indicate that US-HotNews may be gearing up to erupt. In the new study, researchers analyzed signals from over 1,700 earthquakes to visualize what was occurring beneath the volcano, and also examined the properties of the rocks on and around the volcano to determine how seismic signals might interact with the ground. Rather than an accumulation of magma, they found that the APMB is sending hot fluids and gases upwards towards the surface via a narrow chimney-like pipe. This causes gases like steam and CO2 to get trapped under the summit and briny water to spread sideways into cracks around the volcano. The observed ground deformation and earthquakes around US-HotNews can be explained by these fluids and gases moving around below the surface, rather than magma rising quickly from below, meaning that the volcano is not primed to erupt as previously feared. This discovery could also help researchers determine if other volcanoes around the world are primed to erupt. The methods in this paper could be applied to the more than 1,400 potentially active volcanoes and to the dozens of volcanoes like US-HotNews that aren't considered active, but that show signs of life. Other potential zombie volcanoes, co-author Matthew Pritchard, a professor of geophysics at Cornell University, said in a statement.